Michael was halfway through Heal the World when security brought a small boy in bandages to the stage. What the child whispered made Michael cancel the next 3 songs and do something that left 72,000 people in complete silence. It was September 23, 1992 at Wembley Stadium in London. The Dangerous World Tour was at its peak, and Michael Jackson was performing for a sold-out crowd of 72,000 screaming fans. The energy was unlike anything anyone had ever experienced. The king of pop was at the height of his powers, moonwalking across the stage, hitting every note perfectly, commanding the audience like a maestro conducting the world's largest orchestra. But tonight would be different. Tonight, one small voice would change everything. In the VIP medical section, just off to the side of the stage, sat 8-year-old Timothy Chen, a burn victim from Birmingham, who had suffered third-degree burns over 60% of his body in a house fire just 3 months earlier. The doctors had given him a 15% chance of survival. He'd endured 17 surgeries, countless skin grafts, and pain that no child should ever experience. Timothy wasn't supposed to be at the concert. He was supposed to be in the hospital, preparing for his 18th surgery scheduled for the next morning. But when the Make-A-Wish Foundation had asked him what he wanted more than anything in the world, Timothy had whispered through his bandages, "I want to see Michael Jackson heal the world." His doctors initially refused. The risk of infection was too high. The crowds, the stress, the excitement, it could kill him. But Timothy's mother, Linda Chen, saw something in her son's eyes I hadn't seen since before the fire. Hope. "If my baby wants to see Michael Jackson," she told the doctors, "then that's what he's going to do. We've been surviving on borrowed time anyway. Let him live, just for one night." The medical team arranged everything. Timothy would be kept in a sterile, climate-controlled booth near the stage. He'd have 2 nurses with him at all times. An ambulance would be on standby. They had thought of everything, except for what Michael Jackson would do when he found out Timothy was there. As Michael began performing Heal the World, something extraordinary happened. His assistant Wayne Nagin, who knew about Timothy's presence, had made a decision without consulting anyone. During the instrumental break, Wayne walked onto the stage, something that never happened during a performance, and whispered in Michael's ear. Michael stopped moving. The smile disappeared from his face. He stood completely still as Wayne continued whispering, pointing toward the medical section. The band, confused, kept playing, but Michael wasn't singing. The crowd began to murmur, unsure of what was happening. Then Michael did something unprecedented. He held up his hand to stop the band mid-song. "Hold on, everybody," Michael said into his headset microphone, his voice echoing through Wembley. "I've just learned something that's more important than this show." 72,000 people fell silent. You could hear the wind blowing through the stadium. Michael walked to the edge of the stage, looking toward the medical section. "There's a very brave little boy here tonight named Timothy. Timothy, can they bring you to me?" The crowd turned to see medical staff carefully wheeling a small boy covered in bandages toward the stage. The audience gasped collectively when they saw him. Timothy's face was partially covered in gauze, his small hands wrapped in white bandages. Only his eyes fully visible, but those eyes were locked on Michael Jackson with an intensity that broke hearts throughout the stadium. When Timothy reached the stage, Michael did something his security team had explicitly forbidden for insurance reasons. He jumped down from the stage to ground level, kneeling beside Timothy's wheelchair. "Hi, Timothy," Michael said softly, though his mic picked it up. "Wayne tells me you're the bravest person in this whole stadium." What happened next was captured by hundreds of cameras, but was so quiet that only those closest could hear it. Timothy leaned forward and whispered something to Michael. The superstar's eyes immediately filled with tears. Later, Wayne would reveal what Timothy had whispered. "Mr. Michael, I got burned, trying to save my little sister's Michael Jackson poster from the fire. I couldn't let you burn." Michael's hands flew to his face. His shoulders began shaking. The king of pop was sobbing in front of 72,000 people, and he didn't care. When Michael finally composed himself, he stood up and addressed the crowd, his voice thick with emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, this little boy, this hero, got burned trying to save Semming with my picture on it. He put himself in danger because of me. The stadium was so quiet, you could hear people crying. Timothy, Michael said, turning back to the boy. You know what? The show can wait. These people came to see a concert, but I think they'd rather see something more important. Would you like to help me heal the world? For real? Timothy nodded, his eyes bright with tears and wonder. What followed was something that had never happened in pop concert history. Michael Jackson canceled the next 3 songs on his set list. Instead, he sat on the edge of the stage with Timothy beside him and did something unprecedented. Timothy's mother tells me that Timothy's sister Sophie didn't make it out of the fire, Michael said to the crowd, his voice breaking. She was 5 years old. Timothy got these burns trying to go back for her. The audience was now openly weeping. Grown men who had come to see the King of Pop were crying like children. So tonight, Michael continued, we're going to do something different. We're going to heal the world, starting right here, right now. Timothy needs 30 more surgeries. His family has lost everything. So here's what we're going to do. Michael stood up, still holding Timothy's bandaged hand. I'm donating £1 million tonight to establish the Timothy and Sophie Chen Burn Foundation. But that's not enough. I want everyone here, everyone, to be part of this. He turned to the audience. There are collection points at every exit, not for me, for Timothy, for all the children like Timothy. And here's my promise. Whatever you raise tonight, I'll deck it, pound for pound. The crowd erupted in applause. But Michael wasn't done. Timothy, would you like to sing with me? Michael asked. The little boy nodded shyly. Michael lifted Timothy carefully onto his lap, and together, sitting on the edge of the world's biggest stage, they began to sing. Not heal the world, Timothy was too emotional for that. Instead, Michael began humming a simple melody, and incredibly, Timothy joined in. No words, just 2 voices, one the most famous in the world, the other small and fragile but full of courage. The entire stadium began humming along. 72,000 people, creating a wordless symphony of human compassion. News crews would later call it the hymn heard round the world. But the most incredible part was yet to come. As they hummed together, Michael noticed something. Timothy's mother was crying harder than anyone else, but not from sadness. She was pointing at Timothy's hands. For the first time since the fire, Timothy was moving his fingers without pain. The doctors would later struggle to explain it. Perhaps it was the endorphins, perhaps the distraction, perhaps something medicine couldn't, but in that moment, Timothy had forgotten his pain. Does it hurt? Michael whispered to Timothy. Not when I'm with you, Timothy whispered back. Michael held the boy tighter and made an announcement that would change everything. You know what? The tour can wait. Tomorrow morning, instead of flying to Paris for my next show, I'm going to be at Birmingham Children's Hospital with Timothy for his surgery, and I'm going to be there for every single surgery after that. His management team was horrified. This would cost millions in cancelled shows, but Michael didn't care. True to his word, Michael postponed 6 shows. He spent the next 2 weeks in Birmingham, not just visiting Timothy, but every child in the burn unit. He hired the world's best burn specialists to consult on Timothy's case. He brought in revolutionary treatments from the United States that weren't yet available in the UK. But more importantly, he gave Timothy something medicine couldn't: a reason to fight. During Timothy's 18th surgery, which lasted 8 hours, Michael sat in the waiting room. When word got out that Michael Jackson was in the hospital, hundreds of fans gathered outside, but instead, in performing, Michael asked them all to pray for Timothy. The surgery was a success, and the next one, and the one after that. 6 months later, at Michael's next London concert, there was a special guest. Timothy Chen walked onto the stage. His face was still scarred. His hands still showed the damage, but he was walking. He was smiling, and he was alive. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael announced, 6 months ago, this young man taught me what real courage looks like. Timothy, you're my hero. Timothy took the microphone, his hands now healed enough to hold it, and said something that made Michael cry all over again. Mr. Michael, you taught me that scars don't matter. What matters is what's in your heart. And my heart is healed. The Timothy and Sophie Chen Foundation, funded by that single night at Wembley, went on to help over 10,000 burn victims worldwide. The collection that night raised £3.2 million, which Michael matched as promised. But the real impact was something that couldn't be measured in money. Dr. James Morton, Timothy's surgeon, later said, "In 30 years of medicine, I've never seen anything like it." Michael Jackson's presence, his commitment, gave that boy a will live that defied medical explanation. Timothy should have died. The injury, the infection risk, the trauma, everything said he wouldn't make it. But he didn't just survive, he thrived. And I believe it's because one person showed him he was worth stopping the world for. Timothy Chen grew up to become a pediatric burn specialist himself. Today, at 39 years old, Dr. Timothy Chen runs the largest burn treatment center in Europe. In his office hangs a single photo, not of him with Michael Jackson, but of Michael Jackson sitting in a hospital waiting room, head in his hands, praying for a little boy he'd just met. People always ask me if Michael Jackson really cared, or if it was just publicity. Dr. Chen says today, I tell them this: Michael Jackson missed £20 million in concert revenue to sit with me through 30 surgeries. He called me every single day for 2 years. On my 10th birthday, when I was still recovering, he flew my entire family to Neverland. He never publicized any of it. The media only found out because other patients' families took pictures. That's not publicity. That's love. The moment when Michael stopped the dangerous tour for Timothy became known as the night music healed. It fundamentally changed how artists thought about their responsibility to their audiences. Madonna, Prince, Whitney Houston, and dozens of other artists began incorporating charity moments into their concerts. The Timothy Protocol, having medical teams identify children in need at concerts, became standard practice at major venues worldwide. But for Michael, it was never about setting a trend. In his private diary, discovered after his death in 2009, Michael wrote about that night. September 23, 1992. Met an angel named Timothy. Today, he got burned trying to save my picture. I've won Grammys, broken records, performed for millions, but nothing, compared to the moment that little boy told me I helped him forget his pain. That's why God gave me this gift, not for the fame, not for the money, for Timothy, for all the Timothys. Note to self, cancel everything when needed. The show means nothing if we can't stop to heal one child. The final chapter of this story came in 2009, just weeks after Michael's death. Timothy Chen, then 25 and in his first year of medical residency, was one of the speakers at Michael's memorial service. Michael Jackson saved my life, he said to the millions watching worldwide. Not with his money, though he gave that generously. Not with his fame, though he used it to help me. He saved my life by showing me that I mattered, that a burned, disfigured little boy was worth stopping a world tour for. He taught me that healing the world starts with healing one person at a time. Timothy then held up a small worn piece of paper. It was a note Michael had written to him during his recovery. Timothy, your scars are proof that you're stronger than whatever tried to hurt you. Wear them like armor. Love always, Michael. Today, that note is framed in the entrance of the Timothy and Sophie Chen Burn Center in London, where thousands of children have found healing, hope, and the knowledge that they matter. Because on one night in September 1992, the biggest superstar in the world proved that sometimes the show must not go on. Sometimes it must stop for something far more important. A single child who needs to know they're loved. The concert that night raised over £6 million for burn victims, but more importantly, it raised awareness about the power of compassion. 72,000 people left Wembley. That night changed. They'd come to see Michael Jackson perform. Instead, they saw him prove that the greatest performance of all is simply being human. And Timothy? He still has the scars. But he also has something else. The knowledge that he was worth stopping the world for. And sometimes that makes all the difference. If my scars could talk, Dr. Timothy Chen says today, they tell you about the night Michael Jackson proved that love really can heal the world, one child at a time.